No one's really ever asked that question before. What's it like being friends with a white person? I think that's quite a provocative question almost. The reason I asked them just so broadly, what's it like being friends with someone of another race, is so that they could just give me whatever answer they were willing to give me. And I knew that that would kind of take us all around the houses, but it showed us a bit about their experience, it showed us a bit about the mistakes people are making, just raw experience basically of what it's like.
See, I think I've been really fortunate because I've been friends with people from different races who kind of understand black culture anyway. I haven't had to explain why I'm feeling a certain way about something that's come up in the news or anything like that. It's just understood straight away, and I think I've been fortunate in that way. Being friends with people of different cultures, I don't know, it's not been difficult for me. It's not been hard. It's been quite interesting. So the friends that I've got, it takes me a long while to be close friends with somebody. So once we're tight, it's kind of like a longevity. We're going to be friends for life kind of thing.
So I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty comfortable around black people, white people. It's when people start making comments about my colour when I get uncomfortable. See, I can be friends with anybody at any time and I don't think about the subconscious intricacies of it, like, oh, this is a white person, I've got to be like A, B and C. I'm just myself around everyone particularly. It's when people make comments like light skin or half black or half white, then I start to get a bit like, I start to think about that person's race and what they're doing and where they've come from, and that's when I start to get a bit more subconscious into it. I always treat it like a base level. I don't try and think too deeply into the colour of a person. I think about the qualities of the person. Obviously, I don't ignore their colour. If we have a conversation about race, it's always there. But I feel like unwarranted comments about my race, like say I've got some jerk chicken, I love jerk chicken. It's like, yeah, of course, because you're fucking from Jamaica or something. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I can take it on the chin, but at the same time, I'm a bit like, whoa, what's going on? That was an unwarranted comment. So if I'm having a bit of banter with someone, it's calm, but yeah.
I was at work, we were doing a private function for this company, and a guy's come up to me and he's gone, oh, I really like your hair. I'm like, thanks. Try to keep the conversation stepping. And he's like, oh, what sort of weave is that? Oh God, is that a sewing? Is that a wig? How did you, and it's like, oh God. And he was so enthusiastic about the conversation. I was just like, oh, this is just, we don't need to have this conversation. You could have easily just not said anything. We could have just kept it stepping. There wouldn't have been any problems. But it's those constant needs to feel like you know me, or even the worst one, and I get it all the time. What country are you from? Oh, I'm Nigerian. Oh, I know an Ola Babatunde from Nigeria. Do you know him? Why on earth would I know him?
It's a big country.
Why would I know him? And the thing is funny, because maybe I do know a person that has that name, but I'm not going to know your friend. Yeah. And there's always this assumption that you know their one Nigerian friend that they probably aren't even friends with, that they probably make comments about the food that they bring to the office or stuff like that.
I think for some people they may be slightly, just generally just unaware and not in a derogatory or in a bad way, but just slightly ignorant to certain things. And that may be also part of my fault in terms of not sharing certain aspects of my life. So let's say 15 people, but out of the 15 there were, let's say, 13 white people in there, and we were talking, and because I understand how to be eloquent and how to articulate myself, and I present myself in a certain kind of way, people would never believe that I would have experienced any racial indifference or any racism. So when I mentioned that I had been a victim several times of racism, they were like, whoa, but how can you experience racism, because you're you? So some people, it's very interesting how people can perceive a person based upon, how they...
Someone do that to you, you're so nice.
You're so nice and you're so cool and you dress so well, and because they're the aspects of me that you will gravitate towards and that you see because you've had time to know me. The issue is sometimes, in passing, people will look at an image and they will perceive somebody to be a certain type of way based upon how you are presented, and not get the full picture of who you are.
For the most part, it's like normal and it's fine, but then I think sometimes you might just have to find yourself explaining things that they wouldn't have ever considered. Like, say if we're going to plan on going on holiday, I might be like, oh, like, let's not go there because that country, like, is it racist, or I'd be a bit uncomfortable with that. Whereas, like, they wouldn't really consider those things. So I just think, like, maybe, like, it's just things like that, really. And I think
things that they might not consider.
yeah, things that they wouldn't consider normally that you would have to, that is always on your mind, or things that you notice that they don't. Like, say if you go into a shop or something, or like a restaurant, and you notice that the waiter or whatever is like paying more attention to the white friend, but like they don't notice it, but you do.
Let's say you have this is one of the reasons why I'm very particular about white friends. Let's say I had like a white friend and I'm like, oh hey, like I want to go to this party, and the party is obviously predominantly black. They're gonna play black music, or what is considered as black music. There's gonna be a lot of black people in that space. The white friend will be like, am I gonna be the only white person in that space? Then it's a whole other conversation about, why are you uncomfortable about being in a space with black people? What do you think black people are going to do? Yeah, but you know, black people can sometimes be blah, blah, blah. And it's like, why is that? Because I live in a country that's predominantly white. How do you think I feel every single day? When I go to work, I go to workspaces and everyone there is basically white. I'm literally the only black person in my job. How do you think I feel about that every single day? It was in the heart of London. It was central London, surrounded by loads of offices. So the only people that were coming in there were white people. It's not like as if it was in like the heart of like a heavily black populated area. No, it was in the heart of central London. The people that were coming in there were white men in suits who worked in law firms, insurance companies, stuff like that. Those were the people that I had to cater to constantly. Nobody ever asked me, oh, how does that affect your well-being? Nobody ever asked me about the way that the white men would look at me and be like, the way that they'd fetishize me all the time, the way that they try to have like hip conversations with me that were just really, really offensive. Nobody ever asked black people about that.
So growing up, not much different, not something I thought about. Where I grew up was quite multicultural with Wolverhampton. I'm more aware of how we're seen from an outside eye if I'm with someone who isn't white. For example, when I was in Edinburgh doing a play, and I was with possibly the only black guy in Edinburgh at the time. And we were walking around, and we were both very aware of how we were being seen. And if we go into a supermarket, we would get followed around. When I was with him, suddenly we were a gang. Yeah. Well, that's how we were perceived, and we were, we were a threat.
It's exciting for me, and it's not to say like I don't want to exoticize someone of a different race, because really, like I said, there are so many different colours and creeds and religions and stuff that are all British to me. If you were born here and you grew up here, then I see them as British. So I guess that's how I just see them as a friend first. And then once we're comfortable, once we're happy, once we know that we're on a level with each other, perhaps then we can start to talk about our cultures and stuff. And I like learning about other cultures. But again, I wouldn't want that to be the sole reason that I was friends with someone, which I found people do. I had a Japanese friend, and I like my Japanese films and anime and the culture and that kind of stuff. He finds a lot of people in, especially kind of this young millennial generation, that I'm not the only one that has this fixation on Japanese culture, that a lot of people would like to just sort of become friends with them so they can say they have a Japanese friend, which there's probably nothing wrong with wanting a friend, but wanting to be friends with someone just because of who they are. It's getting into dodgy territory there, I feel, because then it's like, are you truly valuing the person for who they are as a person, which is a person first, or are you more fixated on their Japanese identity, or this doesn't just apply to that, but other identity? Do you want to be friends with them just because of something that might be seen as exotic to you? It's definitely important to learn about other people's cultures, and I think it's naturally in us to want to know about other people's culture and learn about things we don't know about. But I think for me the line would be when the questioning of the person's culture and heritage overpowers them as a person. I think them as a person is the most important thing. Who are they? What do they care about? What makes them happy? What do they believe in? These kinds of things. And then maybe we can get on to exploring each other's heritage and learning about it.
People grow up different based on their race. Maybe if it's just tiny little things about how they were raised, stuff like that. So I'm intrigued to learn about what the little differences are. But at the same time, I don't go out seeking friendship just for that.
Yeah. I feel like when I get cubbyholed and I get made to feel like something I should be, that's when I really try and break the boundaries to be something I'm not. because I just have that little thing when someone says I can't do something or I'm doing something very specifically, I try and do everything in my power to just break that cycle.
You can't put white people in one category. So many of my white friends are different. But generally, I would say, especially the people that I've been drawn to, white people, it's not been, there hasn't really been a difference. They've always kind of made me feel uncomfortable. I've understood where they're coming from. I used to stay over. And then you'd learn stuff because you'd see that they would do stuff a bit different from when you do. And I remember stuff like, calling stuff tea, just different stuff like tea, yeah. Even just stuff like that. I'm like, the parents used to ask me, do you want some tea? I'm like, what's tea? Do you know what I mean? What's tea? Just different stuff like that. But it's good. I think it was good because it kind of opens up my eyes and gets me to know.
I was never allowed to have a sleepover. I was never allowed to sleep over. But as a kid growing up, but all my friends would be like, oh yeah, like come over to sleep over or whatnot, just play Xbox all night or whatever it is. My mum was like, no, like 10 o'clock, you've got to be home. You've got to sleep in your own bed.
It's sort of like a level of understanding, I think, for me in friendships where race has never interfered with it, but it's just like, oh, that's cool that you live like that and I live like this because of our race.
I remember I'm a big foodie, right? So that was one thing I love. It's a good passion project for me, and when I was especially meeting people of other races was the food connection. Because, you know, England, we don't have many staple foods, right? We got roast, like, yeah, don't get me wrong, it's the best in the world, but like, yeah, it's that thing. And I remember eating like plantain for the first time, and then eating like jerk chicken, and just being like a child, and like getting to show that, and then her being so passionate, and like also just hearing about upbringings. Because it's so different. Like, you know, I would hear Becky talking about her family and how they all were, and that amazed me, because that was something, maybe a little bit of jealousy. Yeah, a bit of jealousy, but it was just nice seeing, and especially like even the London side of it. Like, what was it like growing up in a city? I could never imagine, because I grew up in fields. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could go out riding my bike for 12 hours a day and there was not a worry in the world.
I give an example, right? So I'm African. Now, in my culture, like when you greet an elderly person, it's very common for you to like call them uncle or auntie. So if I was to take you to my house right now, it's not really in our culture for you to call my mum by her name. It's not really, it's frowned upon. You know what I mean? Or my dad or whoever. Anyone that's older than you is not really accepted for you to call them by name. Just refer to them as like uncle or auntie or whatever. But it's like, I have to explain that to my friends of a different race. It's like, cool, come to my crib. You can't really call my mum her name. Do you know what I mean? You've got to refer to her as auntie this or my dad as uncle that. Because in our culture, it's just not on. You know what I'm saying? And as my friend, it's going to be one of those things like, okay, if that means a lot to you and your family, cool, I'll do that. Same thing with me. You know what I'm saying? I have friends who are like Asian and white and stuff, who I might not necessarily agree, but I understand why it's important to them. And because I understand why it's important to you, it's like, you know what, I respect it and I'll do things your way. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's that understanding, and you won't really know all these things without venturing out of your racial bubble. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for example, with my white friends, Sunday roast. That's a thing. Like, religiously every Sunday roast. I love a Sunday roast. Personally, it's amazing. Do you know what I mean? But it's just one of those things like, okay, cool, you guys like a Sunday roast. You guys go to the pub.
It's interesting because you get to see things from different points of view. You get to like try their cooking. I love it. I love it.
One of my best friends, it's just a white kid, and he won't understand some of the stuff that, it's not even major stuff that you have to go through, because for me race has never been a massive thing that's like disrupted any part of my life. But there's been little things that you just get, like for example when people are saying you don't talk black, you don't act black, blah blah blah.
I have got a lot of black friends, and I love it because we can talk so in detail about all these issues and things that I understand, they understand. I know that I will never understand racism to the extent that they do, but I love to listen and learn. They can understand my position better than my white friends can. Like with my white friends, it feels more like educating them, but with my black friends, it feels like they understand the core of who I am better.
We met at church, and now, what was that, like 8 years ago, and So it's very diverse, so it's not like we're a group of friends all from the same race. But I think one thing that's really powerful is that although we're all from different backgrounds, different upbringings, different places, it's so diverse and we're so different. But I think because our values and like our beliefs, and although we are from different races or different ethnicities, is that we all understand each other. And like if somebody didn't understand something, or if one of my white friends didn't understand something about me, like we're able to have a conversation about it. And it's like, it's not like they're asking from a place of ignorance or from a place of like, if it's not like they're being racist, or like it's often we're having a conversation genuinely because they want to educate themselves, and vice versa.
So there's almost like tiers to friendship, if that makes sense, and tiers to relationship. And so there's certain aspects of a relationship which are fine and mutual and they're understandable because that may be like economic similarities, or there may be like relational similarities and social similarities, but when it comes down to like ethnic similar, it's very different, because the lens that I experience and look at life through is very different to how you may perceive life. Not that we won't have a basis of friendship to still be friends, but there are certain areas of friendship that you may not understand, if that makes sense.
With a white friend, like white friends that I've had, they can only sympathize, they can't fully empathize, because they don't really, how can I explain it? They don't feel the same pain. Do you know what I mean? So when I'm talking to my black friends about, oh yeah, this policeman stopped me for no reason and threw me up against the wall, it's like, yeah man, I've had something similar. They'll probably say like a similar story. Whereas with certain of my white friends, they've never had that. To them it's like, what? The police did what to you? And I'm just thinking, yeah, this is a regular thing, you know, like this is life as a black man.
I feel like with a black person, probably it's always going to be stronger, just because they get it. And I think like with my white friends that I have, they do get it. And I think, so I can easily explain something that happened to me and they're like, oh, that's annoying. Like, I just think you're on a different level of, with the white friend, it's like they get it and they're angry too. But I think with the black friend, they've experienced it, and I think that's the difference.
Not that I haven't had friends who are white, and we have great relationships and great friendships, and it's awesome. But on a deeper level, there have been things which maybe haven't been quite so prevalent and that haven't been quite so understood, just because of, you know, their upbringing and their, you know, life that they've experienced and their experiences, etc. Which I wouldn't say for me personally has hindered our relationship in any way, but I would say it probably would mean that there are parts of our friendship which may not be so deep rooted, just from a lack of, you know, not understanding what you go through as a black person on a day-to-day basis.
The only times I would think it would be difficult is like if I make friends with someone who's white, like middle class, brought up around all white people, and then like bringing my other friends around them. Sometimes I'd be a bit like, oh, like what if they say something, like what if they say something that's not right, like, or they're insensitive or something like that. Yeah, because if you're white and your friends, you meet someone at uni, whatever, they're white, you're never really going to find out if they're racist or not unless something comes up. But obviously, I wouldn't really know, because with my white friends, I definitely don't talk about race as much as I do with my friends who aren't white. I feel like a lot of white people don't really think about race. They don't think, well, because they never have had to think about race, because it doesn't really, being white doesn't really affect you in society, in a negative way anyway. I feel like they just don't think about it or talk about it.
I just think I learned so much, and it still happens, and it's like still the same thing. And especially where I work, there's people from all over the world, and it's just awesome speaking to like culture differences, and yeah, so much shared humour. It's crazy. You can get on with anyone.
What's been happening recently with like the Black Lives Matter movement, like we've been very open and we've had a lot of conversations about it, and I count myself very lucky to have a friendship group that I can talk about these things with them, because I know a lot of people don't, especially if you're not in a mixed friendship group. I guess you won't necessarily have other people's opinions. You won't really have someone that you can talk to as a white person being brought up in a different area, say. Like, you won't necessarily know their opinion or know from their point of view how they see a lot of things. Like, I was already upset and outraged by it almost before it was like, got so big. And sometimes it can be quite a touchy topic. Sometimes it can be a conversation that you don't necessarily want to talk about, mainly because I don't want to hear someone's opinion that I know is just going to annoy me, because it's like, I don't want to have that conversation. But with my friends, I think, because of what happened, and because it was such a huge thing, and it's like you couldn't avoid it, it was everywhere, then we were able to have conversations. And I think I'm very blessed to have a friendship group that they do care, like, a lot. And obviously they don't have a problem with having interracial friendship groups, and they also went to schools that were very diverse, so it wasn't like I was trying to like force them to understand my experience. It was more that they were like, oh, let's talk about your experience, and they were asking about it, yeah, because they wanted to understand.
So those friendships, I feel comfortable to say, why do you think that, or why do you do that, or why is this happening in your culture? And they feel the same with me. I don't feel offended if a friend says, why, as a black girl, do you always wear hair extensions? Because those friendships have been built on that relationship of trust, of openness, but then that honesty with each other, yeah. And I don't feel disrespected by that. But that's only because we've built that friendship.
My thing with friendships is just make the attempt. You know what I mean? Again, like I said before, I don't expect you to fully understand, fully grasp it. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not in it.
Yeah.
But I do expect you to at least try. And so long as you're trying, I'm okay with that. You're not going to get everything right. Just try. Yeah. That's it.
People can't wrap their heads around everything. And if they can just, I think acceptance is the main one. If you can kind of like just say, oh, okay, that must be a bit shit, anything like that, and just move on. Have a good time together, be nice.
So for example, a friend of mine, a white friend of mine, in order to show his solidarity with black people, he just posted, there was this old picture of, we were like holding hands, it was just both our hands together, and he posted up a picture of just us holding hands. And he was just like, I'm showing my solidarity with black people. And I was just thinking, this isn't showing your solidarity. Showing your solidarity would be, is not about you posting the black hand and saying that you associate yourself with black people. Showing your solidarity as a white friend is asking your white mates, what is it that we're doing? Why is it that these people, why is it that black people feel so wronged? What have we done specifically that has caused us to feel so wrong? It's not a case of, well, you know, slavery's over, so why are they still upset about it? It's not over. It seems like I have like a vendetta against white people, and I generally don't. All I just want is for them to just essentially listen. So when it comes to the woke ones, I obviously do appreciate them going to get educated, and I do appreciate that, but it's like, when you become woke, you still have to understand that regardless of your wokeness, my experience as a black person will always, always, always trump whatever it is that you have learned in your books and stuff like that. And that's something that I just really, really hope all woke white people understand.
One of the participants was saying that if you invite your white friend to a party which you know is going to be loads of black people there, and they'll be like, they'll be scared to go. They'll be scared to go to the party. But then you have to think about it from the other way around, is that for that girl who said that, her entire life in the UK, you know, she's the only black person in her workplace. This means that she's in that minority situation all the time, but white people wouldn't want to put themselves through that situation even once, even for a party. So you know at a party you're going to get a good welcome, but even then, we're still very uncomfortable about that situation. So that's something that we need to think about. She was like, just go to the party. Nothing bad's gonna happen. Why do you assume something bad's gonna happen at this party just because there's loads of black people there? So that's like where we are with it. Yeah, if you do get the opportunity or the privilege to be invited to this type of party, then you should go. That's my advice. Some of the people were saying that they got put into a box because of their race, and people assume that they would be a certain type of way because of their race. This is something else that I think they were referring to, like the white people in their life had done to them. So assuming that, you know, because you're black, you love who love hip hop and rap music. And that's like just a big stereotype. It might be a massive rock or death metal person. We just need to be aware of these things. And that's why we're doing this, why we're doing this project, so that we can then share this knowledge with people and they can learn some of the things that they might have been doing, might have been making people uncomfortable, and then change their behaviour.